Let's get started. Your go-to channel for the quickest updates in Formula One has 3 exciting stories for you. To keep ahead of the competition, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. There was a lot of drama at the Canadian Grand Prix, but few moments were as tense or emotionally charged as the late race encounter between Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, 2 McLaren teammates. The incident, which took place in the final laps of the race, left fans in the McLaren garage divided and clearly disappointed. Norris, who had been pushing hard in the closing stages, tried an ambitious move on Piastri to gain ground, but it didn't work out and not only hurt his position, but it also cost both drivers valuable championship points right after the race. In the post-race interviews, Norris was quick to accept full responsibility for the incident. There was no attempt to shift blame or sugarcoat what had happened. He openly admitted that it was a clear mistake on his part, saying that he should not have made that move and that the fault lay entirely with him. "I thought I could make the move stick, but I misjudged the situation, and I feel terrible for the team and for Oscar," Norris said. The Formula One community was ablaze with questions about whether Norris lost his composure, whether it was a miscalculated risk or just the price of intra-team competition in such a fiercely contested midfield. Perhaps the most telling moment occurred off-camera, during the interview area when Norris spotted Piastri and immediately walked over to apologize in person. The exchange was brief but heartfelt, and Norris paused his own media duties to approach his teammate and express his remorse directly. Norris continued to express deep regret for not only the contact, but also for letting the team down at a time when every point counts. He acknowledged that McLaren had a strong chance to secure more championship points, and his error had directly impacted that opportunity. Piastri, for his part, appeared to accept the apology without hesitation, and there was no visible sign of lingering animosity. Their exchange suggested a desire on both sides to move forward and maintain harmony within the team. This moment of accountability stood in stark contrast to many high-profile driver clashes in the past, where apologies were delayed or avoided altogether. While tensions often run high in the competitive world of Formula One, the professionalism shown by both drivers in the aftermath of the incident has helped to calm fears of any major internal rift. At McLaren still, the question lingers, could this be the start of deeper tension between the two young drivers, as both continue to develop their careers and fight for supremacy within the team? Incidents like this may become harder to avoid. Team orders individual ambitions, and the razor-thin margins in modern F1 all contribute to a volatile mix. For now, however, McLaren fans can breathe a sigh of relief. The situation appears contained, and both drivers seem committed to working together. What remains to be seen is how the team will manage similar situations. In the future, will there be stricter rules of engagement? Will one driver emerge as the clear no one, or will McLaren continue to encourage free racing between its drivers, even at the risk of internal clashes? Max Verstappen's super license is currently 1 penalty point away from a race suspension, a reality that has the team on high alert and seemingly in a defensive posture. Any incident or FIA penalty deemed serious enough could trigger the automatic suspension, sideline Verstappen for an entire race, and potentially deal Red Bull's campaign a massive blow. This past weekend brought more than just another race to the Formula One calendar. One of the main concerns circulating in the paddock was the precarious situation. It's reported that during the pre-race team briefing with the FIA, Red Bull took the unusual step of expressing their concern about what they suggested could be strategic manipulation by rival teams. According to several sources, Red Bull directly warned the FIA that some teams might try to orchestrate scenarios or provoke incidents that would force Verstappen into a mistake or into receiving a penalty, thus activating the suspension clause. Red Bull reportedly requested that race director Ray Marquez stay vigilant and watch for any behavior that might appear engineered to provoke Verstappen into a punishable action. The team wasn't just speculating, they went a step further by formally protesting George Russell's driving. In the final laps of the Canadian Grand Prix, Red Bull accused the Mercedes driver of erratic behavior and alleged that he performed an intentional brake check. That could have trapped Verstappen into making a move that would result in a penalty. From Red Bull's perspective, Russell's maneuver could have set the stage for Verstappen to unintentionally cross the line, literally and figuratively. However, the FIA opted not to penalize either driver. Russell escaped without sanction, and Verstappen's point tally remained unchanged, avoiding the worst-case scenario for Red Bull. Despite this outcome, the incident only intensified Red Bull's suspicions that Verstappen could become the target of on-track politics. In the races to come, Red Bull's actions appeared to be part of a broader strategy to maintain pressure on the FIA and at the same time publicly highlight the risks Verstappen faces. Speaking after the race team principal, Christian Horner, noted that in high-stakes title fights it's not unusual for rival teams to look for any opportunity to unsettle a dominant driver. He even hinted that similar tactics have been used in the past, and suggested that the Canadian GP was a clear example of those dynamics playing out again. It's expected that Red Bull will continue this line of communication with the FIA at upcoming races. The team's concern is not only for Verstappen's driving conduct, but also for how closely his actions are scrutinized under the shadow of that near suspension status. Verstappen, however, remains defiant. Speaking candidly to the press earlier in the weekend, he made it clear that he would not change his driving style, stating that losing a race might not be ideal, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. In his words, "I'm not going to change the way I race. I'll do everything the best way I can, but I'm not going to drive differently just because of a number on my license." Do you believe Red Bull has good reason to be concerned? Are opposing teams genuinely attempting to fool Verstappen, or is this just a feature of elite racing where mental strategies are just as crucial as speed? What a dramatic end to the Canadian Grand Prix, even after the checkered flag had fallen. The race result was momentarily under threat, at least for the winner, George Russell. Red Bull lodged a formal protest to the FIA, requesting that Russell be penalized, which could have potentially stripped him of his hard-fought victory. The issue, according to Red Bull, Russell's behavior behind the safety car in the final laps was improper and violated the sporting regulations. Specifically, the team accused him of brake testing, slowing down unnecessarily on multiple occasions, one of which reportedly caused Max Verstappen to briefly overtake him, something that's not supposed to happen. Under safety car conditions, Red Bull also argued that Russell was repeatedly leaving too much distance between his Mercedes and the safety car ahead. Of FIA regulations require that drivers maintain a reasonably consistent gap, especially in the final laps leading up to a race restart or the finish. Deviating from this protocol can lead to safety concerns and sporting advantages. Following the protest, both drivers and team representatives were summoned to appear before the race stewards. Each side presented its version of the events. Red Bull maintained that Russell's actions could have provoked an illegal maneuver or accident, potentially, even targeting Verstappen's precarious license situation as he's only one penalty point away from a race ban. Mercedes, for their part, denied any wrongdoing. They argued that Russell's actions were entirely within the usual margins of race procedure under a safety car, and apparently the FIA agreed. In an official statement released after their decision, the FIA explained that the incident had already been reviewed during the race and no punitive action was deemed necessary. At that time, they emphasized that a certain amount of leeway is always granted regarding the gap to the safety car, especially when the field is bunching up or preparing for a restart. Moreover, the FIA clarified that drivers routinely accelerate and brake behind the safety car in order to maintain optimal tire temperatures and brake pressure, both crucial factors for performance and safety. Once racing resumes based on the data and testimony provided, the stewards concluded that George Russell did not breach any specific rule and that his conduct, while perhaps aggressive, was not unusual or punishable. With that, Russell's victory was confirmed, and Max Verstappen retained second place in what proved to be another high-stakes chapter of this season's title fight. This protest underscores the growing tension between Red Bull and other teams, particularly as Verstappen remains on the brink of a one-race suspension due to his penalty point situation. It's clear that Red Bull is extremely sensitive to any scenario that might put him at further risk and is proactively challenging any incidents they perceive as potentially targeted or manipulative. That said, not everyone agrees with Red Bull's perspective. Some fans and analysts believe the team is overreacting, trying to sway stewards with pressure tactics. Others sympathize, acknowledging that when a driver of Verstappen's caliber is on the edge of suspension, every on-track interaction becomes high stakes, and even minor infractions can spark major consequences. So was Red Bull justified in filing the protest? Was the FIA right to reject it? These are the questions now circulating in the paddock and among fans worldwide.